You know, we have to give Microsoft some props. I know I'm quick to sort of call them out for things, but they had a good day and a half. I think they really surprised a lot of people, although they weren't really planning to surprise people when they did. They were actually trying to do that like a week or so later per Phil Spencer, but that's over and done with now. Congratulations, you had a good day and a half. You kind of did your thing. People were talking about Xbox like it was relevant again. And now everybody's moved on and we can consider, going about our day, doing what we normally do. Isn't that how life works? In all seriousness, you had to expect developers and Sony and there to be some kind of pushback. And now we've seen that, and this is really good news for PlayStation 5. And again, it piles on that Microsoft at times don't really know what they're doing. So I'm really excited to sort of get into this video, and hopefully you guys are as well. What's up, everybody? Crapgamer here with Crapgamer Reviews, back with another video. Thank you so much for checking it out. I really do appreciate it. Please like, share, and subscribe. I would appreciate that as well. It helps out the channel, and it means a lot to me personally. If you're looking for a way to support a small content creator like myself, a simple like goes a long way, as does hitting the bell and YouTube notifications so you're notified of everything as soon as it drops. Much appreciated. Shout out to all the old subscribers, new subscribers, everybody in between. You're appreciated. You're wanted. Thank you very much. You've found a home here. Hopefully you enjoy it. So clearly, when the Xbox Series X leaked out, or the Xbox Series S as well, like we have official announcements, official launch dates, official pricing. Shouldn't be too much of a surprise to many people. The $299 price point, people really kind of get invested in, oh, this is going to be a huge seller and things like that. I kind of take the point, maybe not necessarily, if you consider that Microsoft has had a $299 and less console for the past few years, and it hasn't particularly sold well. Taking into account that Microsoft has also, quote-unquote, ended generations, you have to figure that people aren't just going to up and go to Xbox all of a sudden. Like, I don't think it really works that way. Although, you will be running out of excuses if you're saying, well, Xbox, that maybe people didn't upgrade in the middle of a generation because it was the middle of a generation, and they'll do it at the start of a new generation. Well, aside from that not being technically a new generation to Microsoft, I just don't see people giving up their PlayStation ecosystem and games and things like that to go switch over to Xbox. And on top of that, literally, Xbox has everything going for it next generation that they had for the past few years this generation, and it hasn't helped at all. So you have to wonder if it's going to help next generation as well. I kind of doubt it. That's just my opinion, though. Maybe something will change. But the interesting part would be, like what developers right now are sort of lambasting the Xbox Series S. We're starting to see the truth about it. If you guys remember, 6 months ago or so, even maybe a little bit before that, developers were saying that they weren't real hot on the Xbox Series S for a number of reasons. And even Jason Schreier, the former Kotaku journalist, was even mentioning, that developers were having a tough time with it. Now we have an epic rant from a developer. His name is Dan Weiss, and he went on an epic Twitter rampage about the Xbox Lockhart, and what he had to say was super interesting. So he's actually a senior gameplay programmer, so he knows his stuff, and he says a bunch of things about the Xbox Series S, which was formerly Lockhart, and I just felt this to be incredibly relevant. He says, and I'm going to go over this entire rant. Let's finally effing complain about the Lockhart Xbox. I caught wind of the specs of this one sometime early last summer when developer relations started really ramping up their stuff. I get why they want this thing to exist. Lower price point of entry to try and gain budget players, but it doesn't make sense to me as a dev at all. Let's start with the CPU. It's lower clocked, and it's not by much, but it's not zero. Make all the claims in the world about the box being aimed at lower resolution, but that doesn't exactly fly for CPU. You're going to have things like game code on CPU on its own thread. So first point, establishing the Xbox Series base achievable spec as a lower tier console than the PlayStation 5. Now, GPU. On paper, this one makes sense. Have the box aimed at 1440p 60 frames instead of 2160p 60, and cut down the GPU. But let's be perfectly honest, neither the Xbox Series X or PS5 are 4K 60 machines unless we're cutting IQ from last gen, and they can mess off with 8K 60. So what we probably realistically have is Xbox X at 1440p 60, and the goal it dropped down to 1080p 60. For the Xbox S, however, you're losing 45% pixels at that, and your GPU is more like 1/3 of hardware. That 1080p 60 ain't happening without also cutting image quality. So now you've got a marketing problem. Visuals only capable on Xbox, quote unquote, has a huge asterisk, and that's only on the expensive one. That didn't work on the Xbox One X, and I sincerely doubt it will work here. Sony can go, looks the same no matter which PS5, and have a big plus. The RAM drop has the same problem, since neither machine is really going to be 4K 60 box. You're not going to be filling RAM with assets for the resolution, which also means that going from 16 to 10, and realistically much less for developers, isn't helpful. At 10 gigs for the Xbox Series S, you're talking about developers maybe having an extra gig of RAM for their projects over games running on the Xbox One at launch. For a system set to run at 1440p 60, that's horrific, and of everything, that is probably the worst problem. So now Microsoft is right back where they were this past generation. The base console is worse than Sony's. Their upper tier console is better, however. Last generation, that meant nothing because of sales. And what have they done to fix it? Nothing. So why support it well? So now you have an Xbox base spec where you can cut stuff down to make it simply run. You have the PS5 spec that you spend the most time on because it's solid hardware and a good place to support. Then you have the upper tier Xbox where it maybe runs a bit better, or maybe runs at native 4K instead of 4K checkerboard, or maybe you turn on one or two fancy bells and whistles that nobody ever notices. Looking at this from the outside, it's like Microsoft didn't learn anything from the last couple of years of 360 where Sony caught up, or the PS4 years where Sony killed them. They have a weak game lineup, and that's where they needed to start, not lower tier console. And don't get me started on ray tracing. This is going to be minimally used on PS5 and Xbox Series X. There's no way developers wasted perf on that for Xbox Series S. The whole thing is really weird marketing point that both companies are stuck on. At the end of the day, none of this matters that much to third party because they'll probably set up for scaling anyway for PC, and will be able to scale on consoles pretty well. However, first party, especially with Microsoft's BS about supporting Xbox One for a while, Microsoft's first party spec is now a weaker spec than Sony's single player, or first party target spec, and Sony has free reign to push that for the next 5+ years. The whole thing feels like Microsoft is kind of treating this like their last generation as a hardware developer, and just trying to expand their presence for future xCloud Game Pass combos where they don't have to lose money on manufacturing anymore. And somebody also asked the question, can't developers just refuse a version for the S? And he responded, no, they wouldn't pass certification. Same reason you can't refuse to do a PS4 Pro or Xbox One X only game. So this was an epic rant. Where do I begin on this? Because this absolutely put Microsoft in their place, put a lot of people in their place, an actual developer. Now, of course, Xbox fanboys are attacking this man. This man's job is coding and development, and you have people who have never done either of those things attacking this person for giving his opinion on this as a developer. It doesn't make sense to me whatsoever. And he's 100% right, okay? And I'm not even just talking about the development points, you know? It's this part right here. They have a weak game lineup, and that's where they needed to start, not this lower tier console. What have I been preaching for so long? It comes down to the games. If you don't have the games, what do you have? You have nothing. You have literally nothing. And that's a big problem for Microsoft right now. You know, they're kind of stuck on this whole thing, and I've been saying this for a while now. The PlayStation 5 exclusives are going to look better than Xbox exclusives because Xbox has these old consoles that they're supporting. Not only the Xbox Series S, but the Xbox One from 2013, the Xbox One S from 2016, the Xbox One X from 2017, and a wide array of PCs. That's what they're doing. This is why developers are coming out. This is why the PlayStation 5 is a good machine, and he even elaborates that people and developers are going to really be sort of inclined to talk up the PlayStation 5 and use the PlayStation 5 and use that as like a jumping point because you only have to develop for a PlayStation 5. That is a huge thing and a huge advantage for the PlayStation 5. This is absolutely great news for Sony, and at the end of the day, you know, Sony are out there doing, you know, what they can to sort of impress and improve, and that's exactly what they managed to do here. And again, it looks like they've actually went that extra mile and got, developer feedback and things like this. This was an epic rant. This is a developer telling people what's up. This isn't some random nobody. This isn't somebody on a podcast. This isn't somebody, console warring. This is a developer, and he's not the only one speaking out about this, saying this is really a mistake, and I'll tell you why. And he gives logical explanations behind all of it as someone who actually does this for a living. So again, there's no need to attack this person or anybody for their opinions, but I do find this to be incredibly fascinating and would love your thoughts and opinions on it down below. Hit me up on Twitter at @_Crapgamer, Xbox Live, MOH space Crapgamer, or just Crapgamer on PSN. As always, stay safe, happy, and healthy. Thank you. Please take a minute to consider subscribing. Have a great day. Rack 'em up. Game on, my friends. Game on. Crapgamer out.
Unscripted.